our next method of factoring is going to be factoring by grouping. Okay, and at this point, for our purposes, we're gonna think of using grouping when we have 4 terms. Okay, assuming there's no GCF. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try grouping whenever we have 4 terms and there's no GCF. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to treat them as pairs, right? We're going to take the terms in pairs. We're going to take the first 2 terms and then the second 2 terms. Alright, so example 7 here, if you see, break it up into 2 terms. I have 6x cubed minus 15x squared, and I've got negative 4x plus 10. So I've broken it up into pairs, and what I want to do is I want to factor out a GCF from each pair. So from the first pair, the yellow pair here, 6x cubed minus 15x squared, I can actually take out a GCF, which would be 3x squared, right? Because 3 will go into 6 and 15, and x squared is the lowest power that you see there. So 3x squared would be the GCF of the first 2 terms, and now what's going to happen is when I take out that 3x squared, what's going to be left? Well, 6x cubed over 3x squared is 2x, and negative 15x squared over 3x squared is negative 5. So I have 2x minus 5. And now out of the second 2, since my third term is a negative, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a negative in front of write a subtraction sign in front of my GCF. So the GCF of 4 and 10 would actually be 2. And again, this has an x here, but the 10 has no x. So I can't take out any x's. So my GCF here is just 2. Or, I mean, I can think of it as negative 2, right? So if I take out a negative 2 from those 2 terms, this is where you got to be careful, because negative 4x divided by negative 2 is actually a positive 2x, and 10 divided by negative 2 is going to be a negative 5. Alright? So what happens is, now, what do I have? I really have only 2 terms now, and in each of those 2 terms, I have a GCF. Now, it's not a monomial GCF, it's actually a binomial GCF, but it's a GCF nevertheless. So that 2x minus 5 is actually a GCF, which I can now take out as my first factor. And once I take out that 2x minus 5 as my first factor, what's left? So I take out a 2x minus 5 from the first term, and I'm left with 3x squared. I take out the 2x minus 5 from the second term, I'm left with a negative 2. So this is it actually in factored form. 2x minus 5 times 3x squared minus 2. And again, you can check that by multiplying out. Right? If you multiply it out, you should get back to the original polynomial. Right? And that's always a good way to check factoring problems. After you factor, multiply out, and then you should get whatever you started with. And if you don't, then there's something wrong. All right? So that would be factoring by grouping.